So somebody's also listening and they want to get started. They like what they're hearing from us, but they don't know how to approach their spouse about it because they're maybe not as excited about talking
Yeah.
about money and things like that. Do you have any
Yeah.
advice for somebody like that?
Yeah, the last time you brought it up, it's like blew up on you. You say budget, and they think that you're being a total control freak.
Yep.
And I've been guilty of that, like guilty as charged. I've tried all kinds of different ways to break my natural like over optimizer mentality in that regard, where my wife's just like, well, I'll share something with you that's pretty interesting, just to give people an idea of like what we're really talking about here. And I'm going to go a layer or two deep, and I hope that it's abstract enough to be applied. But for a decade, we know when Julie and I first married, I know we spent $150 per month on groceries, just the two of us, and we were eating cheap stuff, not healthy, but $150 a month. As the family grows, and as our means grew, Julie slowly spent more and more on groceries naturally. But I was always coming back and being like, do we have to spend this much? Whether it was 150 of the old days or 600 or 700, do we have to spend this much? And then it was like, we overspent, we overspent, we overspent. And I was tired of having to I do most of like the budget lifting in the relationship. And she at that time did a lot of the grocery shopping. So I was like, where's the Julie that like knew the price of a can of corn, like off the top of her head? And where's that woman that I married? And she's changed. And I think at the time we had four kids, little kids, and she's like, this was the breakthrough for me. She said, for me, a successful grocery trip is that the kids don't melt down and I'm out of there as fast as possible. Like we had different jobs to be done to quote Clayton Christensen. We had different jobs. I was like, oh, the job is spend as little as possible. And she was like, no, no, no. The job is convenience, ease, speed. And suddenly I thought, oh, we got to put more in the grocery budget. And we haven't overspent since. It was just different priorities inside that grocery category. So there's nuance there, and you have to be patient with each other as you discuss these things. Like, wow, you reacted very stronger than I thought you would. Let's talk more about that. The best thing you can do to get started, one's a tactic and one's like kind of an overall strategy. Strategy is you have a money conversation that's not about money. You just talk about what you want. And that one doesn't carry all of the blame and baggage that sometimes money conversation can carry. So have a couple of those dates where you're like, I just want to take a step back. It's the start of the year. Like, what are we going to do this year? What do we want? Like, what do you want? The other thing that you can do that's purely tactical, but if you find that you're kind of more of the money manager, this one's easier to pull off. Simply budget for, save, squirrel money away. There was a woman that we chatted with years ago. She would return things and then take cash instead of back on the card and squirrel it away in a jar that had formerly been a basil jar. So she did this for an entire year. And at the end of the year, she presented all of this cash to her husband, and they were able to pay off this big debt that they had been kind of lording over him. She did it secretly, which at first you're like, hey, and she said the money all smelled like basil. I was like, oh, that's not too bad, But they did kind of this celebratory thing, and for her husband, he realized how bad she wanted that to happen, kind of a realization for him. But she did it in secret. And I think one of the coolest things you can do is you can budget for something that your spouse does not think is possible to purchase and just set aside money for it, like kind of a little bit like laundering money. Kind of, you got to be sneaky about it, but it's for such a good cause. And you just say, hey, and then use the word budget like 50 times. Hey, I've been working with this budget and I ended up just kind of budgeting $120 every month for the last 8 months. And so I thought, well, the budget says we can do this. Why don't we go to like the fanciest hotel in town and stay a night or two? And I also got us a reservation at the fanciest restaurant because the budget said we could do that too. And so you're just reframing what it means to budget for something. And I've found that works with a lot of people that just kind of turn it on its head. And you didn't change anything about how you manage money. You left status quo completely alone. You just laundered money out for a little while for that greater good purpose of saying, hey, the budget said we can do this thing. No guilt, no feeling bad. So many times we take vacations and it's just kind of half-hearted because it's like, we're going to have to pay for this later. It is a joy to have all that cash ready and just blow it on that awesome vacation. So that's a little tactic. So one's kind of a bigger, higher level approach. The other one's purely tactical. They're both excellent ways to kind of break new ground on thinking about how your spouse thinks about money.
I think both of those are fantastic because they lead with communication. They lead with an open dialogue and listening too, finding out what their motivations are, or leading with fun. You lead with, hey, here's a cool thing that the budget allowed us to do together.